Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the stars stretch into lines as the Ninth Fleet entered hyperspace. 50 ships moving together through the twisted dimensions between normal space, carrying humanity's hopes and fears toward an uncertain future. Blake had made this journey many times before, but never with so much at stake. "Hyperspace transit is stable, Captain," reported Lieutenant Lisa Grant from the navigation station. "All ships maintaining formation. Estimated arrival at Zenthari Prime in 21 days. Blake nodded and settled into his command chair. 21 days to prepare for what might be humanity's final diplomatic mission, or the beginning of a war that could destroy everything humans had built among the stars. He looked around the bridge at his crew, people he had served with for years, people he trusted with his life and the lives of everyone aboard the ship. "Commander Torres, please join me in the ready room," Blake said. "Lieutenant Grant, you have the bridge." Commander Nina Torres followed Blake into the small office behind the bridge. Torres was Earth's best specialist in alien psychology, and Blake knew he would need her expertise in the coming days. She had studied every known coalition species, learned their languages, understood their cultures better than almost any other. Human alive? "What do you think we are really walking into?" Blake asked as the door closed behind them. Torres sat down across from Blake's desk and activated a holographic display. Images of 12 different alien species appeared in the air between them. The Hegemony Coalition, crystalline beings who thought in mathematical patterns, aquatic creatures who communicated through electrical fields, energy beings who existed as pure thought, and 9 other species that were equally strange and wonderful. "The official reports say the coalition sees us as too aggressive and unpredictable," Torres said. "But I have been studying the pattern of our missing ships, and I think there is something else going on. The coalition is not just rejecting our diplomacy. They are studying us." Blake leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Torres touched the display and brought up a star map showing the locations where human ships had disappeared. Red X marks dotted the space between Earth and Coalition territory, each one representing a failed mission and hundreds of lost lives. "Look at the pattern," Torres said. "The first ship disappeared here, near the edge of Coalition space. The second one made it further before vanishing. The third one got even closer to Zenthari Prime. Each mission has been allowed to penetrate deeper into Coalition territory before disappearing." Blake studied the map carefully. Torres was right. There was definitely a pattern. It looked almost like the Coalition was testing humanity, seeing how far each mission would go, how they would react to different situations. "You think they have been capturing our people alive?" Blake asked. "I think they have been studying human behavior, human technology, human tactics," Torres replied. "They want to understand what makes us tick before they decide how to deal with us permanently." A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Blake activated his communicator and heard the voice of Dr. Alex Carter, the fleet's xenobiologist. "Captain, could you and Commander Torres come to Laboratory 7? I have something you need to see." Blake and Torres made their way through the corridors of the Retribution to the science section. Dr. Carter was waiting for them in front of a large holographic display showing what looked like pieces of metal and electronic components floating in space. "We found this in our path about an hour ago," Carter said. "Debris from a human ship, probably from the 7th mission that disappeared 2 years ago." "But look at this!" Carter touched a control and the holographic display zoomed in on one piece of debris. It was clearly part of a human weapons system, but something was wrong with it. Burn marks covered the surface, but they were not from weapons. Fire. They looked like someone had been cutting the metal apart very carefully. They were not destroyed in battle, Carter continued. These ships were taken apart piece by piece. Someone wanted to study every component, understand how human technology works. Blake felt a cold chill run down his spine. Are you saying the Coalition has been capturing our ships intact? That is exactly what I am saying, Carter replied. And if they have been studying our technology for 30 years, they know everything about our weapons, our shields, our tactics. We are walking into a trap that has been 30 years in the making. Torres activated her own display and brought up intelligence reports from Coalition space. There is more, she said. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures coming from the direction of Centauri Prime. Large ships moving in formation, more ships than we have ever seen the Coalition assemble in one place. Blake studied the data carefully. The energy signatures were massive, representing hundreds of Coalition ships gathering near their capital world. It was more military power than humanity had ever faced before, enough to destroy every human colony in the galaxy. They know we are coming, Blake said quietly. This whole thing is a setup. Carter nodded grimly. The question is, what do we do about it? We can turn back now, warn Earth, and prepare for a defensive war. Or we can continue forward, knowing that we are flying directly into the largest military trap in galactic history. Blake walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars streaming past in hyperspace. Somewhere ahead lay Centauri Prime and the assembled might of 12 alien civilizations. Behind them was Earth, humanity's birth world, depending on the Ninth Fleet to secure their future among the stars. We continue forward, Blake said finally, but we do not go in blind. He turned back to his officers and activated the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We have discovered evidence that our mission may be more dangerous than originally planned. The Coalition has been studying humanity for 30 years, learning our strengths and weaknesses. They believe they understand us completely. Blake paused, thinking about the words he needed to say. The crew of the Ninth Fleet had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return. Now they needed to know that the odds were even worse than anyone had imagined. What the Coalition does not understand, Blake continued, is that humans are at their best when the situation seems hopeless. For 30 years, they have been preparing to defeat us using everything they think they know about humanity. But there are things about us that cannot be learned by studying captured ships or interrogating prisoners. Torres smiled as she listened to Blake's speech. She knew what he was talking about. Human unpredictability, the ability to adapt and improvise under pressure, the stubborn refusal to give up even when defeat seemed certain. These were traits that could not be programmed into a computer or predicted by alien psychology. We will arrive at Centauri Prime in 20 days, Blake announced. During that time, we will prepare for every possibility. We will study the enemy, adapt our tactics, and find ways to use their expectations against them. The Coalition thinks they know how humans fight. We are going to show them how wrong they are. Dr. Carter began analyzing the debris more carefully, looking for any information that might help them understand Coalition technology. Torres started reviewing psychological profiles of Coalition leadership, searching for weaknesses in their decision-making processes. Chief Engineer Pete Williams began modifying human weapons and shields, trying to find ways to surprise an enemy that thought they knew everything about human technology. Throughout the ship, and throughout the 50 ships of the Ninth Fleet, crews began preparing for what everyone now knew would be the most important battle in human history. Not just a battle for territory or resources, but a battle for humanity's right to exist as a free species among the stars. Blake returned to the bridge and settled into his command chair. 20 days to Zenthari Prime. 20 days to prepare for a confrontation that would determine whether humans remained a minor species trapped in a small corner of the galaxy or became something the Coalition would learn to respect and fear. The Atit stars continued to stream past in hyperspace, carrying the Ninth Fleet toward their destiny. Behind them, Earth waited for news. Ahead of them, 12 alien civilizations prepared to spring the largest trap in galactic history. And in between, 50 human ships raced toward an uncertain future, carrying the hopes and dreams of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. 2 years after the Vorthak Empire's failed invasion of Earth, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The species that had dominated space for 10,000 years was now reduced to scattered remnants hiding in remote star systems, while their former slaves built new civilizations based on freedom and cooperation. The crystal spider ships that had once inspired terror across dozens of worlds were now nothing more than scrap metal in human shipyards. Hive Commander Zexthul dragged his broken body through the ruins of what had been the Vorthak Command Center in New York. 3 of his 4 limbs were missing, lost in battles against human forces that had shown no mercy to their former oppressors. His once proud exoskeleton was cracked and leaking the blue fluid that served as Vorthak blood. He was alone, the last surviving member of his command staff, and he had come to beg for terms from the species he had tried to enslave. The building around him had been transformed completely. Where alien technology had once hummed with quiet efficiency, human modifications created a chaotic symphony of improvised engineering. Cables and pipes snaked along the walls in patterns that hurt Zexthul's eyes to follow, while hybrid computer systems processed information faster than any pure Vorthak technology had ever managed. General Patricia Hayes sat behind a desk made from the hull plating of a destroyed alien cruiser, studying reports from human forces throughout the galaxy. She had been a colonel in the United States Army when the invasion began, but the war had promoted her quickly through ranks that no longer meant much in a military force that spanned star systems. Now she commanded the largest liberation fleet in galactic history. Zexthul approached the human general with the careful movements of a defeated enemy seeking mercy. In the Vorthak language, he began the ritual phrases that requested a negotiation between opposing forces. But Patricia Hayes cut him off with a wave of her hand, speaking through a translator device that had been built using captured alien technology. The terms she offered were not negotiation, but surrender. Complete withdrawal from Earth and the entire solar system, immediate release of all enslaved populations throughout the galaxy, and reparations in the form of technology and resources to help rebuild the worlds the Empire had devastated. Zexthul realized with growing horror that these were not requests but demands backed by overwhelming military superiority. Captain Ben Murphy stood at the general's side, his uniform decorated with medals from battles fought in a dozen different star systems. His squadron had led the assault on the Vorthak home world itself, reducing the Empire's capital to rubble in a single devastating attack. The aliens who had once seemed invincible had been beaten so thoroughly that they could barely maintain control over their own remaining territories. Dr. Lisa Park entered the room carrying a tablet filled with data that represented 2 years of continuous research into Vorthak technology and biology. She began explaining to the defeated alien commander exactly how much humanity had learned and improved upon everything the Empire had once considered advanced. The quantum drives that powered human ships were now twice as efficient as the originals, while human weapons could penetrate any defense the aliens had ever developed. But the most devastating revelation was how completely the Empire's control over the galaxy had collapsed. Alex Chen's communication networks now connected rebellion movements on over 300 worlds, all of them using human weapons and tactics to overthrow their Vorthak oppressors. The empire that had ruled space for 10 millennia had been reduced to fewer than 50 controlled star systems, and that number was shrinking every day. Jake Morrison had become something of a legend among the liberated populations. His engineering expertise had helped dozens of species adapt human technology to their own needs, while his tactical knowledge had trained resistance fighters across the galaxy. Stories of the human who could disable alien technology with his bare hands had spread faster than official communications, inspiring hope wherever the Empire still held power. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lewis commanded a fleet of over 500 human warships, each one more advanced than the most powerful vessel in the original Vorthak Armada. The shipyards of New Forge and similar facilities throughout human space were producing new vessels faster than they could be crewed, while alien survivors begged to surrender rather than face the devastating efficiency of human military forces. Zex Thul listened to the recital of his species' defeats with growing despair. The humans had not just beaten the Vorthak Empire, they had systematically dismantled everything it represented. The fear that had held the galaxy in chains for thousands of years had been replaced by hope and determination, while the technological advantages that had made conquest possible were now turned against their former owners. Kate Sullivan had established training camps on liberated worlds throughout the galaxy, teaching former slaves how to fight using human tactics and weapons. Her students included species that had been enslaved for so many generations they had forgotten what freedom looked like, but under her guidance, they were learning to be warriors instead of victims. The general continued listing the Empire's losses with clinical precision. The Vorthak homeworld was in human hands, along with their primary manufacturing centers and research facilities. Most of the Empire's leadership was either dead or in hiding, while their former subjects celebrated their freedom with enthusiasm that terrified the remaining Vorthak survivors. Maria Santos had expanded her engineering operations beyond Earth to include massive construction projects on dozens of liberated worlds. Her teams were building new cities, spaceports, and industrial facilities designed to help former slave populations become self-sufficient and prosperous. The galaxy was being rebuilt according to human principles of cooperation and innovation, rather than fear and oppression. But perhaps the most devastating blow to Vorthak pride was the revelation that other species had always been more capable than their oppressors realized. Once freed from the Empire's restrictions, former slaves had begun developing technologies and ideas that surpassed anything the Vorthaks had ever achieved. The Empire had not just stolen their freedom, it had stolen their potential for greatness. Rick Thompson's research into faster-than-light communications had connected every liberated world in a network that allowed instant coordination across the galaxy. The isolation that had made Vorthak control possible was broken forever, replaced by a system that ensured no world would ever stand alone against oppression again. Dr. Pavel Volkov's psychological studies had revealed the full extent of Vorthak weakness and cowardice. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years had never actually been brave or strong. They had simply been the first to develop certain technologies and had used those advantages to convince everyone else that resistance was hopeless. Yuki Tanaka's manufacturing techniques had been adapted by dozens of different species, each adding their own innovations and improvements. The standardized weapons and equipment that had made human resistance so effective were now being produced on hundreds of worlds by populations eager to defend their newly won freedom. Zexthul made one final desperate attempt to negotiate, offering to reveal the locations of hidden Vorthak treasure worlds and research facilities in exchange for mercy. But General Hayes simply smiled and activated a display screen that showed real-time intelligence from across the galaxy. Human forces had already located and captured every significant Vorthak installation, while their advanced sensor networks could track the Empire's remaining ships wherever they tried to hide. The defeat was total and absolute. The Vorthak Empire that had once controlled hundreds of worlds was reduced to a handful of ships fleeing toward the galactic rim, carrying nothing but the bitter knowledge of their complete failure. They had come to Earth expecting to harvest millions of slaves, but instead they had awakened a force that would reshape the galaxy according to principles they could never understand. As Zexthul prepared to return to his ship and carry the terms of surrender to what remained of the Empire's leadership, he composed the message that would mark the end of 10,000 years of Vorthak dominance. His words would be remembered long after his species was forgotten, a final admission of the terrible mistake they had made. The last crystal spider ships lifted away from Earth's atmosphere, their holds empty of the slaves they had come to collect. Instead, they carried only remorse and the knowledge that they had destroyed themselves by underestimating the species they had chosen as victims. Behind them, human construction crews were already beginning work on the first interstellar colonies, while signals arrived daily from liberated worlds, requesting assistance in building new civilizations based on freedom and cooperation. The age of Vorthak oppression was over, and the age of galactic liberation had begun. Humanity had learned that the universe was far larger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined, and they were determined to explore it as liberators rather than conquerors, carrying the light of freedom to every corner of the galaxy where darkness still held sway. Admiral Kate Morrison stood at the wide window of the Earth Defense Council station, watching the blue marble of Earth spin slowly below. The year was 2387, and humanity had been among the stars for over a century, but Earth still held that special place in every human heart. Today, however, Kate felt only worry as she looked at her home world. The message had arrived 3 hours ago from the Hegemony Coalition. 12 alien species working together, and their answer was the same as always. No, humans could not expand into the Outer Rim territories. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent to be trusted with more space. The Coalition had spoken, and their word was final. Kate turned away from the window and walked back to her desk. On the screen, she could see the faces of the Earth Defense Council members. Some looked angry, others looked tired. All of them looked worried. For 30 years, the Coalition had been pushing human colonies out of good systems, rich planets with rare metals, perfect worlds for farming, strategic locations for trade routes, all taken away from humanity piece by piece. This is the 9th time we have tried to talk to them, said Council Member Janet Brooks from New Tokyo. 9 times, and each time our ships just disappear. Our people, our technology, our hopes, all gone. Kate nodded slowly. She remembered each mission. The first had been a simple diplomatic vessel with 20 people aboard. The second was larger, with better weapons and shields. By the 8th mission, they had sent a small fleet of 10 ships with over 3,000 people. None had ever returned. No distress signals, no wreckage found, nothing. They simply vanished once they entered Coalition space. What do we know about the Coalition? Fleet movements? Asked Council Member Robert Kim from Mars Central. Kate touched her screen and brought up a star map. Red dots showed Coalition positions throughout the galaxy. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each dot represented ships that were bigger and more advanced than anything humanity could build. The Coalition had been traveling the stars for thousands of years, while humans were still learning to make fire. Intelligence reports show massive buildup near their capital worlds, Kate said. They are preparing for something big. We think they might be planning to attack our remaining colonies. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Humanity's expansion into space had been slow and careful. They had maybe 50 colonies spread across 30 systems. Each one was precious. Each one represented the hopes and dreams of millions of people. If the Coalition decided to wipe them out, there was little Earth could do to stop them. We need to send another mission, said Council Member Lisa Hayes from Europa Station. But this time, we send everything we have. Kate had been expecting this. She had been preparing for this moment for months. On her desk was a sealed folder marked Ninth Fleet Operations. Inside were the plans that could save humanity or destroy it completely. The Ninth Fleet is ready, Kate said quietly. 50 ships, our most advanced technology, our best people. Captain Ryan Blake will command, from the UES Retribution. Everyone in the room knew Captain Blake. He was a legend in the Earth Defense Forces. Blake had fought pirates in the asteroid belt, explored unknown systems beyond the galactic rim, and saved colonies from natural disasters. He was brave, smart, and had never lost a battle. If anyone could succeed where 8 previous missions had failed, it would be Blake. What makes this mission different from the others? Asked Council Member Janet Brooks. Kate opened the sealed folder and spread out the contents. Technical specifications, battle plans, crew assignments, and one document that made everyone lean forward to read it carefully. This time, we are not going to ask nicely, Kate said. The Ninth Fleet carries experimental quantum torpedoes, adaptive AI systems, and something the Coalition has never seen before. We have been studying the wreckage from the few Coalition ships we have found over the years. We know their weaknesses now. The truth was more complicated than Kate could explain in a simple meeting. Earth scientists had been working day and night for decades, trying to understand Coalition technology. They had found crashed ships, ancient ruins, and sometimes even captured Coalition equipment from space pirates. Slowly, piece by piece, they had learned how alien shields worked, how their weapons functioned, and most importantly, how they thought. The mission parameters are simple, Kate continued. Captain Blake will take the Ninth Fleet to Zenthari, Prime, the Coalition capital. He will deliver our final ultimatum. If they refuse again, he has authorization to take whatever action he thinks is necessary to protect humanity. Council Member Robert Kim raised his hand. Are we talking about war, Admiral? Because if we are, we need to be very clear about what we are asking Captain Blake to do. Kate looked at each face on the screen. These people represented billions of humans across dozens of worlds. They had families, children, hopes for the future. The Coalition wanted to crush all of that, to keep humanity trapped in a small corner of the galaxy while they controlled everything else. We are talking about survival, Kate said finally. For 30 years, the Coalition has treated us like children. They have stolen our colonies, destroyed our ships, and made it clear that they see us as a threat to be eliminated. The Ninth Fleet is our answer to that threat. The vote was unanimous. Every council member agreed that the Ninth Fleet should launch immediately. Kate felt both relief and terror as she watched the results appear on her screen. They had just authorized what might be humanity's last chance for freedom among the stars. After the meeting ended, Kate walked down to the observation deck where she could see the Ninth Fleet assembling. 50 ships floated in perfect formation around the station. The UES Retribution was the largest, a heavy cruiser that looked like a metal sword pointed at the stars. Around it, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels waited for the order to depart. Captain Ryan Blake was already aboard his ship, preparing his crew for the journey ahead. Kate had known Blake for 15 years, had watched him grow from a young officer into one of humanity's finest commanders. She trusted him completely, but she also knew what she was asking him to do. The Ninth Fleet might not come back, just like the 8 missions before it. Kate activated her communicator and sent a message to Captain Blake. "The Council has approved your mission. You are authorized to use any means necessary to secure humanity's future." "Good luck, Captain." The response came back immediately. "Understood, Admiral. The Ninth Fleet will not fail." As Kate watched, the 50 ships of the Ninth Fleet began to move away from the station. Their engines created brilliant points of light against the darkness of space. Soon they would enter hyperspace and begin the long journey to Coalition territory. In 3 weeks, they would arrive at Zenthari Prime and deliver humanity's final ultimatum. Kate pressed her hand against the window and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. The fate of every human in the galaxy now rested with Captain Blake and his crew. The Coalition had ignored 8 previous ultimatums, and humanity had learned to be patient. But patience had its limits, and those limits had finally been reached. 1 year after the alien invasion began, the war had become something the Vorthak Empire had never experienced before. They were losing, badly, to a species they had expected to enslave within weeks. The crystal spider ships that once dominated Earth's skies were now prime targets for human forces that struck with devastating precision and vanished before the aliens could respond. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lewis stood on the bridge of humanity's first space-capable warship, watching the moon grow larger through the armored windows. The vessel had been built in the underground factories of New Forge using a combination of human engineering and captured alien technology. They called it Defiance, and it was about to carry out the most ambitious military operation in human history. The ship's crew included veterans from every major resistance cell on Earth. Kate Sullivan commanded the Marine assault teams, while Ben Murphy led the pilots who would fly the attack craft. Jake Morrison oversaw the technical teams responsible for disabling alien systems, and Dr. Lisa Park coordinated the intelligence gathering that would follow their victory. The Vorthak base on the moon had been their primary staging area for the Earth invasion. Intelligence gathered from captured alien computers showed that the facility processed enslaved populations from dozens of worlds before shipping them to work camps throughout the Empire. Destroying this base would not only cripple the alien operations around Earth, but would also send a message to every enslaved species in the galaxy. Alex Chen's communication networks had grown beyond Earth. Using modified alien technology, human signals were now reaching other star systems where the Vorthaks had established colonies. These transmissions carried detailed information about Vorthak weaknesses and human resistance techniques. Within months, rebellions had broken out on 7 different worlds, all inspired by Earth's example. The aliens' rigid hierarchical structure had become their greatest weakness. Human forces had learned to identify and target Vorthak commanders, knowing that destroying the leadership would paralyze entire enemy units. A single sniper could disable an alien battalion by taking out the right officer, while the remaining soldiers stood around waiting for orders that would never come. Rick Thompson's engineering teams had not only reverse-engineered alien faster-than-light drives, but had improved them significantly. Human modifications allowed the drives to operate more efficiently and travel farther than the original Vorthak designs. This gave human forces strategic mobility that their enemies could not match. The attack on the moon base began with a coordinated, electromagnetic pulse that disabled the facility's long-range communications. Dr. Park's upgraded pulse weapons were now powerful enough to affect alien systems across an entire military complex, leaving the defenders blind and unable to call for help. Frank's assault teams landed simultaneously at 12 different points around the lunar facility. The aliens had built their base assuming they would never face a serious attack, so their defenses were designed more for show than for actual combat. Human forces cut through the outer perimeter in minutes and began working their way toward the central command structure. The Vorthaks defending the moon base fought with desperation, but their equipment and tactics were no match for human adaptability. Where the aliens relied on energy weapons that could be disrupted by electromagnetic pulses, humans used a mixture of projectile weapons, explosives, and modified alien technology that the defenders could not counter effectively. Jake Morrison led a team deep into the alien facility's computer core. The intelligence they gathered there revealed the true scope of the Vorthak Empire's weakness. Their entire civilization was held together by fear and the illusion of invincibility. Once other species realized the aliens could be defeated, the Empire would collapse like a house of cards. The most shocking discovery was that the Vorthaks had never actually fought a real war. For 10,000 years, they had conquered worlds through intimidation and the threat of superior technology. When species surrendered without fighting, the aliens simply took what they wanted and moved on. Earth was the first world to call their bluff and expose them as the weak, cowardly parasites they really were. Maria Santos had expanded the new forge facility into a massive underground industrial complex that now produced weapons and equipment for resistance forces around the world. Her engineering teams were building spacecraft faster than the aliens could destroy them, while her weapons factories supplied electromagnetic pulse devices to rebellion movements on distant planets. The victory on the moon was total and devastating. Human forces captured the entire facility with minimal casualties, while the alien defenders either surrendered or fled in panic. The base's computer systems provided intelligence about Vorthak operations throughout the galaxy, including the locations of their major slave processing centers and military installations. But the most important result of the moon victory was psychological. For the first time in their history, the Vorthaks had lost a major military installation to an enemy they considered primitive. News of the defeat spread through the Empire faster than official communications, carried by the same quantum entanglement, networks the aliens used for instant messaging. Dr. Pavel Volkov's research into Vorthak psychology had revealed another crucial weakness. The aliens were not just hierarchical, they were also deeply conformist. Individual Vorthaks could not function effectively without constant approval from their superiors. This made them excellent followers but terrible independent thinkers, which explained why they had never developed effective counter-strategies against human guerrilla tactics. Yuki Tanaka's mass production techniques had revolutionized the Resistance's manufacturing capabilities. Weapons that had taken weeks to build in laboratory conditions could now be assembled in hours using standardized components. This allowed human forces to arm rebellion movements on other worlds faster than the Vorthak Empire could suppress them. The aliens were beginning to panic. Reports from across the galaxy described rebellion movements that used human tactics and weapons. The Empire's slave populations, who had been docile for thousands of years, were suddenly rising up with devastating effectiveness. Worse yet, many of these rebellions were being coordinated by human advisors who traveled between star systems to share their knowledge. Captain Ben Murphy now commanded a squadron of human-built fighters that could outmaneuver any Vorthak vessel. The aliens' space superiority, which had been the foundation of their empire, was crumbling as human pilots proved to be far more skilled and creative than their enemies had anticipated. The Defiance returned to Earth carrying not only intelligence and captured technology, but also representatives from 3 different enslaved species who wanted to join the human-led rebellion. These aliens brought knowledge of Vorthak operations throughout the galaxy and revealed the locations of major enemy installations that could be targeted by future human expeditions. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lewis found himself in command of a growing interstellar navy as more human ships rolled out of the new forge facilities. Each vessel was better than the last, incorporating lessons learned from previous battles and new technologies developed by human engineers working with captured alien equipment. The Vorthak Empire's leadership was in chaos. Hive Commander Zexthul had been stripped of his rank and faced execution for his failure on Earth. The invasion that was supposed to provide millions of new slaves had instead triggered the largest rebellion in the Empire's history. Dozens of worlds were in open revolt, and the situation was getting worse every day. Alex Chen's communication networks now spanned multiple star systems, coordinating resistance movements across hundreds of light years. The quantum entanglement technology that the aliens had used to maintain control over their empire was now being used against them by the very species they had tried to enslave. Human forces began striking Vorthak installations throughout the solar system. Mars, the asteroid belt, and the outer planets all hosted alien facilities that fell to human attacks within weeks of each other. Each victory provided more resources and intelligence, which were immediately shared with rebellion. Movements on distant worlds. The aliens' reputation for invincibility was completely destroyed. Species that had lived in fear of the Vorthak Empire for thousands of years were learning that their oppressors were weak, cowardly, and completely dependent on technology they could no longer monopolize. The galaxy was waking up from 10 millennia of slavery, and humanity was leading the charge toward freedom. As the first year of the war ended, Earth's skies were clear of alien ships for the first time since the invasion began. The Vorthaks had been driven from the planet entirely, their forces scattered or destroyed by human forces that had grown from desperate resistance fighters into the most effective military organization the galaxy had ever seen. The tables had turned completely. The aliens who had come to harvest slaves were now the ones being hunted across the stars. Their empire was collapsing, their technology had been surpassed, and their darkest fear had come true. They had awakened an enemy far more dangerous than themselves. Humanity was no longer defending its home world. It was liberating the galaxy, one star system at a time. 6 months after the invasion began, the alien forces faced a situation they had never encountered before in 10,000 years of conquest. Not only had the humans refused to surrender, but they were actually winning battles against the supposedly superior Vorthak technology. The crystal spider ships still hung over Earth's cities, but now they were under constant attack from an enemy that seemed to learn new tactics every day. Captain Ben Murphy had been flying cargo planes for 15 years before the aliens arrived. Now he was leading the most dangerous mission in human history. His modified aircraft carried Dr. Park's latest electromagnetic pulse device, powerful enough to disable an entire alien command ship. The plane had been stripped of everything unnecessary and fitted with makeshift armor welded together from car parts and construction materials. Ben's crew included Jake Morrison from Denver, who had become an expert at disabling alien technology, and Kate Sullivan from Chicago, whose urban warfare experience was invaluable for planning the attack. They had spent weeks studying the alien ship's patrol patterns and defensive systems, looking for any weakness they could exploit. The discovery that changed everything came from an unexpected source. A group of children hiding in a school basement had captured a wounded alien scout. The creature was smaller than the soldiers the humans usually fought, and when separated from its equipment, it was surprisingly fragile. Dr. Lisa Park examined the alien and made a shocking discovery about the Vorthak species. The aliens had hollow bones like birds, which made them light but fragile. Their coordination was poor in Earth's gravity, which was heavier than their home world. Most importantly, they were nearly blind in bright sunlight. Their eyes had evolved for the dim red light of their home star, and Earth's yellow sun was painfully bright for them. This explained why they mostly operated at night or from inside their ships. But the most important discovery was about their social structure. The Vorthaks were extremely hierarchical, with each level of command depending completely on orders from above. When Dr. Park questioned the captured alien, she learned that individual Vorthaks could barely function without constant direction from their superiors. Remove a commander, and the units below would become paralyzed with confusion. Maria Santos had been working around the clock to complete the underground facility in the Appalachian Mountains. The complex they called New Forge was now home to over 5,000 people and had manufacturing capabilities that rivaled major factories. Using blueprints captured from alien installations, human engineers were building hybrid weapons that combined alien technology with human innovations. The weapons coming out of New Forge were unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Where Vorthak technology was elegant and precise, human modifications were crude but devastatingly effective. A human-modified alien energy rifle could fire twice as fast and hit much harder than the original, even though it looked like it had been assembled in a garage. Ben's mission launched on a clear morning when the alien ship over Washington, D.C. was conducting its daily patrol rotation. Intelligence from Alex Chen's communication network had identified a 15-minute window when the ship's defenses would be focused in the wrong direction. Ben's cargo plane approached from the east, flying low to avoid detection until the last possible moment. The plan was simple but incredibly dangerous. Ben would fly directly at the alien ship's command section, while Jake activated the electromagnetic pulse device. Kate would coordinate with resistance teams on the ground to attack the ship's support systems at the same moment, creating maximum chaos and confusion among the alien forces. As Ben's plane climbed toward the massive crystal spider ship, Alien, fighters began launching from the vessel's lower sections. The enemy aircraft were fast and maneuverable, but they were designed for space combat, not atmospheric flight. Ben used his knowledge of Earth's weather patterns to stay hidden in cloud cover until he was almost on top of his target. The electromagnetic pulse device activated just as alien energy beams began targeting Ben's plane. The effect was immediate and devastating. The alien ship's lights went out, Its weapons stopped firing, and its fighters began falling from the sky as their control systems failed. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had taken down one of the massive command vessels. But the real revelation came when human forces stormed the disabled ship. The aliens inside were not the mighty conquerors they had appeared to be. Without their technology, they were weak, confused, and unable to coordinate any effective resistance. Many of them simply surrendered when confronted by human soldiers, something that had never happened in any previous Vorthak conquest. The intelligence gathered from the captured ship changed everything humans thought they knew about their enemies. The Vorthak Empire was not a collection of warrior races as they had claimed. They were a single species that had grown weak and dependent on their technology over thousands of years. They conquered other worlds not through superior fighting ability, but by convincing their victims that resistance was hopeless. Dr. Park's analysis of the alien computer systems revealed the locations of Vorthak bases on the Moon and Mars, as well as the positions of their reinforcement fleets. More importantly, she discovered that the Empire was already questioning the wisdom of the Earth invasion. Casualties were mounting, progress was non-existent, and the human resistance was beginning to spread to other worlds where the Vorthaks had enslaved different species. Jake Morrison had become something of a legend among the resistance fighters. His knowledge of construction and engineering made him invaluable for sabotage operations, and his calm leadership under pressure had saved dozens of lives. Now he was leading teams that modified captured alien technology faster than the aliens could adapt their defenses. The success of Ben's mission inspired similar attacks around the world. Within 2 weeks, resistance forces had brought down alien command ships over London, Tokyo, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo. Each victory provided more alien technology and intelligence, which was quickly shared through Alex Chen's global communication network. Russian scientist Dr. Pavel Volkov had been working independently to decode alien technology, but now he joined forces with the American teams. His research into the quantum mechanics behind alien communications led to the development of jamming devices that could disrupt Vorthak coordination across entire continents. In Japan, engineer Yuki Tanaka had discovered how to mass-produce the electromagnetic pulse weapons using modified car batteries and microwave oven components. Her techniques were simple enough that resistance cells around the world could build the devices in hidden workshops using salvaged materials. The aliens' confidence was cracking. Hive Commander Zex Thul had lost 3 of his command ships and over half of his ground forces. The humans were no longer just defending themselves. They were actively hunting Vorthak patrols and destroying alien installations with increasing skill and efficiency. What terrified the aliens most was how quickly humans learned and improved. A tactic that worked against the resistance one day would be useless the next, because the humans would have already figured out a counter-strategy and shared it with every other resistance cell on the planet. The Vorthaks had never faced an enemy that adapted so quickly or shared information so effectively. The captured alien computers revealed that the Empire was built on fear rather than strength. For thousands of years, they had convinced other species that the Vorthaks were invincible, and most civilizations had surrendered without putting up serious resistance. But humans had called their bluff and exposed them as the weak, technology-dependent species they really were. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Lewis had been organizing the scattered resistance groups into something resembling a proper military force. The newly formed Human Defense Corps combined the best fighters from every resistance cell with the most advanced hybrid weapons coming out of New Forge. Their first major operation would be an assault on the Vorthak installation on the Moon, Engineer. Rick Thompson had been working with Danny Rodriguez to reverse engineer the aliens' faster-than-light drive systems. Using parts salvaged from destroyed alien ships, they were building humanity's first interstellar spacecraft. The ship would carry a message to the Vorthak Empire and any other species watching Earth. Humans were no longer confined to their home planet. As the 6th month of the invasion ended, the situation had completely reversed. The aliens who had come to harvest slaves were now trapped on a hostile world, hunted by an enemy that grew stronger every day. Their technology had been captured and improved upon, their weaknesses had been exposed, and their reputation for invincibility was in ruins. The Vorthaks faced a choice they had never encountered in their history: retreat in shame or face total annihilation. For the first time in 10,000 years, they were the ones being conquered, and they were learning what it felt like to be helpless against a superior enemy. The hunters had become the hunted, and humanity was just getting started.